Everyone, and welcome to Resume Writing Series Part 2, which is Resume Formatting Basics. My name is Taylor, and I am the STEM Career Coach here for the Career Services Department. If you missed Part 1 of this series, please go ahead and check out the YouTube channel to begin viewing it. Today, we will be talking about why resume formatting matters, formatting foundations such as the font, spacing, the style, and why all that matters. We're going to also discuss structuring your resume and discussing those sections that really matter to employers and recruiters. We're going to talk about those designs, do's and don'ts. When it comes to writing a resume, sometimes we don't really know how it should look, right? So we're going to discuss that. We're also going to talk about some ATS-friendly formatting tips, tools, templates, and resources as well. And then that final formatting checklist. So let's talk about the golden rule of resume formatting. So when you first sit down to create your resume, the first thing to remember is this: your resume is your first impression. So how do we make that first impression a positive one and to make that happen? So let's start with the font. You want something simple, readable, and friendly for applicant tracking systems, or also known as ATS. Some great go-to options when it comes to the font is using Calibri, Arial, and Times New Roman. These fonts keep things professional while also ensuring your resume goes through those ATS filters. The next part to that font is the size. What size should it be? Well, your name should always be slightly larger because we want that to stand out. We want your name to make that impression. So usually it's going to be slightly larger than the rest of your font on the resume. So usually between 14 to 16 point. So this way it pops off the page. The rest of your resume text should be between 10 to 12 point. You don't want it too small, but you don't want it too large. You want that sweet spot when it comes to that font size. This keeps things readable without taking up too much unnecessary space. Sometimes we try to crowd that resume with more information, and so we make our font size smaller. And we'll talk about margins here shortly, but then we widen those margins, and then there's no white space, and then it becomes very crammed. So it's really important to think about that font size. We want to make it fit, we want to make it readable, we want to make sure there's that white space. So let's talk about color. I often get students and alumni who submit resumes with a lot of color, and I love seeing that because I see the open door to your personality and what you're about. However, in terms of submitting that resume, and I know it can get really tempting to get creative with that design, but when it comes to the resumes, black and white is star of the show. You can't get any better than a black and white resume. It is the best. So stick with black and white text. So black text on a white background. And then that makes it the most readable, the most professional, and it's really the safest choice for all industries. So now let's talk about how long should that resume be? It's a really great question. Ideally, your resume should be 1 to 2 pages, depending on your experience. So if you're newer to the field, with minimal experience, or possibly even making a career transition with not a lot of experience in the field you're going towards, then that 1-page resume is probably going to be most appropriate. Those 2-pagers, you have years worth of experience, volunteering, professional associations, those different things. Those are going to be what you typically start seeing on those 2-page resumes, even on the 1-page resumes as well. You can add those things. So just keep in mind when you are writing a resume, whether it's 1 or 2 pages, it should be over 50% filled. Too much white space can appear unprofessional. So if you do go into those 2 pages, make sure the majority of that resume page is filled out. Same for your 1-page resume. Make sure that it's the way the spacing and the formatting is laid out. You want at least a solid 1-page resume or close to it, because again, if you are newer to the field or into the job market, it might be something that you might not have a lot of information, but that's where we can work together to discuss where we can plug some things in at. Maybe it's the education section, maybe it's your volunteer section. So there are ways to making sure that you fill out that resume. And then when it comes to thinking about, maybe I will make it more than 2 pages. If you've got that extensive experience, Again, those 2 pages are fine, but here's the thing. If you go past those 2 pages, the likeliness of your resume getting read, it really lowers those chances. So you might think, well, I've got over 10 years of experience. How do I fit it all in? Well, the rule of thumb is focus on the last 10 years. Unless something is older and is directly relevant to the job that you're applying for and really want to demonstrate those skills and experience to meet those job requirements, then of course, include that. But if it's not relevant and it doesn't really help establish that longevity that that job is seeking, then that is something that you can leave off. Leave off anything past those 10 years of experience, especially if it's not relevant or highlights what you're looking to do in this next job role. And something else to think about when it comes to, okay, I only have 2 pages, or I don't even know what to include in my 1 page resume. So if you're really just in general not sure, let the job posting guide you. If a skill or experience isn't mentioned on that job announcement and it doesn't help you to really stand out, that's something you can leave off. But if there are things in that job announcement where you say, yes, I have this, I have this, I have this, well, there are your bullet points. That is the information to include. And that is tailoring. Tailoring your resume is going to be everything. And that's how you know what to leave on your resume and what to leave off. So if you're struggling to get it down to those 2 pages, what does that job announcement say? Now, of course, you might have like a hard copy resume, and that one might be a little bit longer where you're picking and choosing as you're tailoring. Those are great to have just on standby, but not necessarily to submit because tailoring is going to be really important. And then you're going to want to keep that layout consistent. A well-formatted resume isn't just about looks. It helps the reader to absorb the information quickly. So use consistent spacing throughout, which means no extra large gaps between sections or squished text and others. Use those round bullet points to list accomplishments and job duties. They're clean, it's clear, it's easy to scan when you use those bullet points, and really make sure that everything lines up evenly. Visually balanced formatting makes a stronger impact. It makes that it's more visually, it visually stands out more. So now let's talk about how much to write. So for your current job or your most relevant experience per se, we usually recommend 3 to 6 bullet points. So again, when it comes to, oh, I'm not sure if I should have a 1 page, 2 page, or how do I keep it under 2 or into that 1 page, usually 3 to 6 bullet points for your most current entries or projects, and then 2 to 4 bullet points for your older entries or projects. Now, the number of bullet points might vary. So maybe you held a position 5 years ago that's more relevant to the position you're applying for. So that one might have a little bit more bullet points, and your most current entry might have that 2 to 4. So just figuring out where to put that balance in, but usually your most current one has the majority of those bullet points. So this helps keep your content concise and make sure the reader doesn't get lost in all the wall of text that some resumes tend to have. It's scannable, and that's what's going to be most important. And then using bold and italics sparingly. I know these days, especially with incorporating ChatGPT and assisting with AI, it likes to bold. But those are things we want to use sparingly. A little formatting can help guide the reader, but too much bolding can overwhelm them, and then they aren't really sure where to look. So here's what works. Bold your name, section headers, job, and education titles. Avoid bolding entire paragraphs or every skill because it does dilute that impact. So it's going to be really essential to just really focus on those different section headers, job titles, and your degree titles to really help them stand out and then guide the reader's eyes into those different sections and what they're going to be learning more information about. And with all this said, remember that most recruiters and employers spend 5 to 10 seconds skimming a resume. So that's it. So your job is to make the most important details pop, and it makes it easy as possible for them to say, yes, this person fits. So when you're reading through your resume, keep in mind when it comes to your formatting that it's not just a list, it's a snapshot of your professional story. That black and white story, here's who I am. My formatting's consistent, so my eyes aren't getting lost when I'm trying to do my 5 to 10 second scan, or I'm not distracted that something is out of place. It's all evenly aligned, it's concise, and it looks good and I'm able to scan right through it. There's not too much text, there's not too much white space, there's not no white space. So those are some golden rules when it comes to the resume formatting. Now let's break down how to organize a resume so that it's clear, concise, and easy for employers to read. Because the structure and sections, where do they go? How do I make this happen? That resume style we will be discussing in general throughout the rest of this presentation, it's going to be based on that chronological order. However, there are various types of resumes and styles that you can consider based on where you're at in your career. So feel free to check out CareerLink for some of those other types of resumes, such as functional and functional and combination, because there might be a better fit for you. But when we talk about the resume structure today, again, we're going to talk about that chronological order. This is the more commonly used resume, but there are other ones out there. So we follow, when writing a chronological resume, we follow a reverse chronological order. That means your most recent experience or education should be listed first within each section. The only exception, sometimes education comes first, and I'm going to explain why here in just a moment. So let's start from the very beginning of our chronological resume. Here are some of the recommended order and sections when you're writing out that resume. First is the contact information. This goes all the way at the very top of your resume. And in this section, you should include your full name, phone number, professional email address, LinkedIn profile link, if you have one, and the link at the very end shouldn't have little numbers on it. This is something that you can personalize. You can personalize that link through LinkedIn, and then include your city and state. You can leave out the full address for private security reasons. So just the city and state is all that's needed there at the top. And remember, you're going to want your name bolded there, and then underneath you can have the additional information, contact information, so that way the employer knows right where to go to find how to get in contact with you and who you are. And make sure that this section is simple and professional. No nicknames or personal details like age or marital status. Most importantly, exclude photos. This can lead to that, unconscious bias and things like that. So you just want text on that resume. And then after you have that section down, the next section typically is the professional summary section. So this is an optional section that you don't have to include on the resume unless you want to. But if this is something that you're going to include, keep in mind, again, employers and recruiters take 5 to 10 seconds to scan through your resume. So if you're going to create that and craft that professional summary, I suggest a section of 1 to 3 sentences that describe who you are as a professional and how your skills and experience relate to your targeted position. This section on the resume will be tailored to each job that you apply for to address the top qualifications listed in that job announcement that you wish to apply for. So it's going to be really important to tailor that section, discuss who you are, and a few skills that are relevant to that job you're applying for. Another optional section when it comes to the resume is a skills section. The skills section is a really great way to show your qualifications at glance. The skills section should highlight your technical skills like software tools, platforms, languages. You may ask, I have a lot of skills to include, which is awesome. Again, you're only want to provide 3 to 6 skills that most closely relate to that job that you're applying for, to be able to narrow it down. 1, this will help with page length, and 2, the employer is going to be more interested in how you have these skills and how you've used these skills or what you've accomplished with them than just stating them in almost like a laundry list, right? Or that grocery list. Oh, I need this, this, and this, or I have this, this, and this. Well, to put the full recipe together to make that amazing dinner, how are we going to make this happen? How did you make this happen? And that's exactly what the employer and recruiter are looking for. So it's going to be important that you incorporate anything that you list in that skill section, whatever tool or software, that hard skill that you have, whatever is listed there, you're going to want to provide that in your experience section or volunteer section. However you've gained that skill or experience, is going to be important to elaborate on that. And again, just to determine what 3 to 6 skills, check out that job announcement if this is a section you plan to include. Now let's talk about the professional experience section. This is really the heart of your resume. You're going to want to list your work history in reverse chronological order. This means your most recent job is going to go first, and then you're going to work your way backwards. So for each job, you're going to want to include your job title that's bolded, and then underneath the company name and location, and then your dates of employment. This should be month and year only. The day is not needed, just the month and year. So for example, you can write December 2024 to present, 12/24 to present. Whatever formatting, as long as that month and year is there. And then those 3 to 6 bullet points to describe what you did, how you did it, and what did you achieve. For those most current entries, again, 3 to 6, and then 2 to 4 for those older entries following that similar format. Now, here's something that's going to be really important, and I just kind of said it just now, but when you're listing out your job duties or what you did or what you are or what you did do in that role, think about listing, not just listing your duties, not just listing, I filed a piece of paper or I maintained I maintained a phone log. It's going to be really important to list those job duties as accomplishments. Sometimes I see students and alumni provide an accomplishment section. That's amazing that you have these great accomplishments, but that actually is how all your bullet points should be written. There should be some type of accomplishment that you had. And it doesn't have to be this grand, big, I saved billions of dollars for my company accomplishment. It can be that you followed protocols which help reduce um, safety, hazards that might have happened on the job or something along those lines. So it's going to be really important to really just make that statement. Give a very clear picture on what you did in your role, not just I filed some papers. Okay, great. You filed and cataloged 50 different files a day, but you created this filing system that decreased the amount of time you have to file by 30%, which allowed you to do other tasks as needed. So you can really highlight, you did more than file some pieces of paper. Like you created a whole cataloging system, which reduced time, not just for you, but other staff members. And you increase that productivity for your company. Like that's the accomplishment. So really think that through when you're writing out those bullet points. And then again, demonstrating your skills, it just makes that more of an impact when you're writing those statements. So what did you do? How did you do it? And what did you accomplish? It's a really great thing to follow. Now, will these points always be hit for every single thing? No, but it's just an outline. It's just a guide to help you structure some of those bullet points. So I know I just kind of gave an example with filing, but here is a type of example. Managed customer service calls. Maybe that's your bullet point, but how can we improve that? You might say completed an average of 20 customer inquiries daily by phone, in person, and email, leading to a 20% improvement in customer satisfaction ratings. So that could be a way to add that measurable data in there. Tell the employer and recruiter, like, hey, I know how to communicate with customers phone, person, email. So my communication style, I can adapt it as needed. There was an improvement in customer satisfaction because of the amount of inquiries that I was able to complete in a day. So maybe you were only doing 10 on average, but you were able to complete 20. This bullet point could be rewritten in multiple different ways. By maybe putting in that how to it, or where did it end up? So there are different ways to be able to really show off what you're capable of. All this to say, just tell that story and it shows your impact. And whenever possible, include that measurable data, whether it's numbers, dollars, percentages, frequency. And again, you might not always have that type of measurable data, especially if it was a job from years ago. That's okay. Just try your best to help convey the scope and impact of your actions. So after that professional experience section, typically comes the education section. And this should be placed right after there, unless, and this is where that exception is that I just said at the very beginning, unless your academic background is your strongest qualification. So for example, if you're a recent graduate or applying for a research or teaching role, so something in the education realm, if if you're new to this field and that's your most qualifying qualification that you have, it should be listed under, above that professional experience section, because that's going to be your qualifying factor right there. So that's the only exception, or maybe that's your preferred method, is putting the education first too. But typically, if your professional experience demonstrates your qualifications more and highlights them more, that should come and then your education section. But if you're newer to the field or making that career transition, that education section might come first, and then that professional education section, professional experience section. So when it comes to the education section, things to include will be your degree earned or in progress. So for example, you may say you have your education header, Bachelor of Science in Information Technology, and I said Bachelor of Science in Information Technology. This is the formal way of writing it, and I emphasize this to be important to write out because it's going to ensure that it's identified in an applicant tracking system. And because if you were to put like BS or BA, those acronyms, it might not pick up on it. And just writing it out correctly versus Bachelor's of Information Technology, just having the formal writing, it will ensure that it matches your diploma, your transcripts, all again for that consistency when it comes to verifying your records, just making it match. And it's also going to be important that you know what your degree is when you are writing out on your resume. And I say this because, if you were to write that you have a bachelor in aerospace, but it's from AMU. However, AMU doesn't have a Bachelor of Aerospace. We do have a Bachelor of Space Studies. This could lead to a job offer being rescinded because you might not meet because that Bachelor's of Space Science might not meet the requirements of the Bachelor of Aerospace Engineering, especially when it comes to accreditations and things that you get that goes along with an aerospace degree. So for example, if a student did put on their resume a Bachelor of Science in Aerospace earned from AMU, and that wasn't correct, it can be rescinded. And now at the time, aerospace was a concentration, so that is where sometimes things might get a little confusing, and that's okay. So it's going to be really important that you put what your actual degree is. The concentration is great. The concentration will show up on your transcript, but you're going to want to make sure that you have your degree title listed on there correctly because, two very separate degrees, space studies and aerospace, again, and you just want to make sure your qualifications are always going to be met when you're applying for the job. So keep in mind that, again, that the concentration is going to be different than your actual degree in terms of how it's written out. So be sure to bold that degree title to help it stand out. And then after the degree title is listed, the school name and location will be next. So continuing that formatting, on the right side margin, enter that graduation date, or you can write expected and then 12/2027 if that's the expected graduation date, including again that month and year. This allows the employer to know when they can expect you to have the degree or when you've earned that degree. In the education section, you can also list any relevant honors or coursework if it's applicable to that section. And this might be an area where if you are newer to the field or making that career transition, you may list some coursework or some projects that you did to highlight your relevant skills and experience to the field, where your professional experience might not quite have that yet. And then lastly, our certifications and those additional sections. This is where you can add different credentials, such as your certifications, licenses, professional affiliations, volunteer experiences. There's some other sections that you may include on this resume, but only include what's relevant to the role that you are applying for. That's going to be really important. And also keeping, again, the page length to 2 pages. So if, some trainings that you might have done, if it's not directly related to that role or going to highlight meeting those requirements, then it's probably safe to say it's okay to keep that off, especially if you have extensive trainings and different courses that you've taken That will help narrow that down a good bit. Now let's talk about the design's do's and don'ts, which we've touched base on this a little bit already, but let's go into it a little bit deeper. When it comes to the do's and don'ts of a resume, it will most of the time come down to that format again, which is why we talked about that in the very beginning, using that legible and professional font like Calibri, Arial, or Times New Roman, and avoid using those funky fonts. These fonts, one, they can be difficult to read and it may not make it through that applicant tracking system accurately. So it's going to be really important to have the correct font. Again, resume should be that 1 to 2 pages in length, and to assist with that font size, it should be between 10 to 12 points for that body text. So it's important to not go too big or too large. And then I mentioned this at the very beginning as well when I was talking about the formatting, but stick to 1-inch margins or slightly smaller, not typically anything past down to 0.5-inch margins. This way you can keep everything nice and tidy. So having wide margins can cause text to be cut off or fitting more content on the page, which again makes that resume appear cluttered and harder to read. So having some white space, you want that healthy balance. For ease of reading and scanning is going to be important. Using bullet points instead of paragraphs for easy scanning for employers, because again, they typically take 5 to 10 seconds to scan that resume. So bullet points help highlight your relevant information quickly versus being lost really in that field of paragraph text, because they're not going to read, they're going to be scanning. And then using that bold to highlight just those headings and job titles. And then as for the don'ts, this is what's really going to be important. And really just a reminder, because I know I've covered this in the last couple of slides, but I really want this one to stick and just kind of a visual like, yes, this is right. No, avoid this. Kind of like that danger, danger. So as for those do's and don'ts, to keep your resume both professional and ATS friendly, avoid using colors. Again, we want that beautiful black and white resume. Graphics. So these include little icons. Sometimes if you end up using a template, templates aren't always applicant tracking system friendly, so keep that in mind. But sometimes templates have little computers or phone symbols and things like that. Avoid it. That is a big don't, because that can interfere with an applicant tracking system. It also can, just kind of take away from that overall scanning of your important information that you want the employer to see. You want it to be all about you. Those icons just make it decorative, and that's a piece that can come off. Text boxes and columns should be avoided as well. If you have a text box on there, take it off. No text boxes. Again, ATS. And also it could come through a little bit funky depending on if you do submit your application via Word and the employer has one version of Word and you have another one, they're not the same year or same updated one, it can come through wonky on the employer's end and get messed up and move things around, and the employer isn't going to want to piece that together. And same thing for columns. So avoid those text boxes and columns, as well as those headshots. No picture on the resume. So again, these elements really can just confuse the applicant tracking system, which we're going to go into here in the next slide, and really just introduce that unconscious bias that we don't want. And while it might seem really obvious, for those don'ts, I didn't touch base on this because I got into the text boxes and columns and ATS. Make sure to never submit a resume, or try not to submit that resume with any typos or inconsistent formatting. That's a really big don't, because that attention to detail matters, especially if you put on your resume that that's a skill you have, is attention to detail, or that's something you're trying to highlight. You really want to make sure that everything is in order and is precise and concise. So reviewing your resume for typos, that inconsistent formatting, and then you have us here in Career Services. We're always here and happy to give you that second glance, but be sure to send it to us in enough time before you actually have to submit that resume, so that way we can get that back to you, and that way you can get it submitted if there is a job you're looking to apply for. But if you're still just kind of getting it ready to go, again, still send it to us, so that way we can just look over those do's and don'ts when it comes to the design of your resume. Now, I've talked a good bit about this in the last few slides and just in this previous slide, but really wanted to dedicate an ATS-friendly tip slide for you guys just to have and to look at. So when it comes to having that applicant tracking system, ATS friendly resume, there are several factors to consider, like what type of ATS is being used. So every company is going to have, for the most part, a different ATS. Not every company has their own like specific one, but one might have iSIMS, where another one might have MultiPro. They're two different systems. They look at two different things. They function two different ways. Now they may have some similarities, but that's something to consider. So think about those different types of ATSs that are being used. And also, how are the recruiters or hiring managers interacting with them? So there are a lot of myths out there and facts out there with applicant tracking systems and resumes and how they're used, but it's going to vary from company and organization and even the type of system that's being used. So just keep that in mind when you're writing your resume, that sticking to those general rule of thumbs with ATS can help your resume get through that system without scrambling up your information and things like that. And when I say that general information, what I mean is creating your resume to avoid those text boxes, columns, and those graphics, because they can interfere and cause that information to become lost or scrambled or even unreadable. So that's kind of those basics. And then another big factor when it comes to ATS is that keyword usage. So I hear this a lot working with students and alumni and read through it. A lot of people think they need to repeat the exact same keyword that they're seeing in that job description over and over. But what really matters is using a variety of related terms and phrases and making sure they're used in the right context. So the context part seems to get lost. We hear the keyword, oh, it says I have to be a good manager and that I've managed things. So I'm going to put manage everywhere on my resume. No. What is the context of what you've managed? What's the context of what they're looking for of what you have managed? And what did you accomplish it? So figuring out the context is going to be extremely important and making sure that matches what the employer is looking for. And again, that part seems to get overlooked and really just focusing on those keywords. So use those keywords and make it flow in that natural way on your resume, because one, not just getting through the applicant tracking system, but when it comes to an employer recruiter reading your resume, they want to understand, how did you manage? What did you accomplish managing? There again, it's telling that story is going to be really important in the various ways that you did it. Maybe you led, maybe you delegated in that managing type role. So, and what did you accomplish when you did those things? So thinking about that when it comes to those applicant tracking system friendly tips. Now, I've gone through and discussed, what to include on the resume, but let's break it down how to organize a resume that's clear and concise and easy for those employers to read. So what I just talked about, I wanted to provide here a sample for you and what I have been describing. So that gives you that visual, again, discussing that chronological order. So here we have at the top is our contact information. We have Jane Doe. Her name is bolded and it's slightly bigger than the rest of the text here. This font is Times New Roman. And then as we move down, we have the contact information right here, city and state, phone number. This is where the LinkedIn URL would go. And then first name, last name, for that professional email address. Typically recommend like Gmail or Yahoo, avoiding some of those outer or even Outlook, avoiding some of those outdated type emails like Hotmail, because we want to show that you are current and up to date with technology. And then if you were to choose to insert a professional summary, right here is one would be put in. And the example is marketing professional with 8+ years of experience in project management, data analysis, and team leadership with clients and partners, skilled in developing high impact marketing messages with a limited budget, along with forecasting and portfolio management. So that is a clean, concise professional summary. It's short, but also highlighting the years of experience they have, where they have it in, and who they've even worked with. So those different skills I listed here at the very end, those would definitely be ones to tailor per job announcement, depending on what they're looking for. And if you're applying to similar roles, then these might end up staying pretty much the same, but just keep in mind that would be a section to tailor. Here is the education section. So Bachelor of Arts in Management and the concentration, Human Resource Management. I just wanted to highlight how it does state concentration because that's going to be really important that the employer knows that that is not the degree, that is the concentration. Then providing the university name and the location, just the city and state. And then right aligned here is the expected date. And then this person also included relevant coursework, and just to highlight, because it looks like they could be making a little slight transition in the field, they listed their education section up here first, but they do have some experience in the financial areas. So, but they wanted to highlight the benefits in human resource development because maybe that's what they're targeting. So your relevant coursework, I just recommend providing a few different courses on here if that's something that you are doing that might show a gap. So maybe you don't have that skill or that experience. Here's where you can help fill in that gap is by providing coursework or a project that you have worked on. And then next is that professional experience section. So here there are 3 bullet points listed for both sections, but they could have done a little bit more if they wanted to, but they kept it to the 1 page, highlighting that currently they reduced annual business expenses of $20,000 in less than a year through application of expense budgeting and forecasting models using Excel, along with pivot tables and formulas. So they got really specific with their skills and what they've utilized to highlight that they have knowledge in those different areas. So including that measurable data, what they've accomplished with it. Now, this person did list the skills section here at the end, likely because this wasn't quite a priority, but they still wanted to include it and also help fill out more of that 1 page. So that, again, that skill section is optional. They didn't choose to put it up here, likely because the education section, again, that's most important at this time, and their professional experience does highlight more of what they want that recruiter and employer to see right away. And then the skills is kind of just like that bonus section here at the end, which is absolutely okay. That is not something I put at the very beginning of this presentation. However, it's okay to list it here at the end, just for an employer to get that quick highlight of those hard skills. And I also want to point out that you don't see teamwork or communication listed in any of these bullet points. It is industry specific. Illustrator, Adobe, Photoshop, those are hard skills and knowledge that this person has and has likely provided up here in their bullet points as well, just to let them know, like, this is how I've used it. This is my experience with it, because that will be really important. So this is a really great formatted resume. Dates are right aligned. Bullet points are evenly aligned as well, all the way down, and consistent bolding throughout. So that's really important to look at when completing that resume and when you're writing it out. And this looks like it was completed here on a Word document. We have talked a lot about resume formatting, the do's and don'ts, but you might be wondering, where should I actually build my resume? And that is a great question. And one of the best places to start is by building your resume from scratch using a Word document. Now, I said a document, not a template. I don't recommend templates because you don't know if they're applicant tracking system friendly, and a lot of templates have those columns and colors and pictures and graphics. So if you are going to build your resume from scratch, I recommend a plain white Word document. And now you might be thinking, well, I don't even know where to begin. Well, that's great news because we also have you covered. We do have a step-by-step resume writing guide on CareerLink that walks you through each section, just as I did here in this presentation. Or maybe you start with this presentation as you write it out. You have this playing as you write out your resume. But we also have a whole guide detailing all the information that I also provide with you here today's webinar that gives you tips and information on how to make your content stand out and how to format it. So if you want to do a Word document, we have a guide to help you walk you through that. Another fantastic option, and where most of our students alumni like to go towards, is Hiration. So Hiration is a platform that offers applicant tracking system friendly templates, and it even integrates ChatGPT to help you write and refine your resume as well as tailor your resume. So if you have a job announcement that you're looking to apply for, you can take that job description, paste it into the box, and it's going to give you some feedback on some ways to tailor your resume. It also gives you some suggestions to highlight your bullet points on the resume. So Hiration is a really great platform to use at no additional cost for you as a student and as an alumni. Plus, Hiration can also assist you with cover letters and LinkedIn profile optimization, really giving you an all-in-one toolkit for your job search. So highly, highly encourage you to check out Hiration, and that can be found on CareerLink under the tab resources, and then resume and cover letters. And that's also where you can find the resume writing guide as well. And through both of those options, we do provide resume reviews for you as students and alumni. So whether you have that Word document or Hiration, you can submit through Hiration for a resume review, and you can always email if you would want to download it and email that through like if you have a Hiration resume, you can always download and submit it in as well. But you can also do that with your Word document. You can email resumehelp@apus.edu, and we are happy to provide you a resume review that way as well. So two great options to begin writing your resume, two great tools, and also templates and Hiration. So now that your resume is written and tailored to the job you're applying for, it is time to take that final look. So let's talk about that final formatting checklist. Ask yourself a few quick questions. Can I skim through this resume and easily catch all the key information the employer is looking for without reading every single line? So can you skim it and still pick out the information that the employer is seeking without having to thoroughly read it? Does the overall appearance of my resume look clean and consistent? Is there a bullet point that might be in in a couple of notches? Does it need to come back out? Are my dates evenly aligned, or does one come out and one go forward a little bit more? So making sure everything's evenly aligned in that right-hand margin, everything's evenly aligned in that left-hand margin. Are all my job titles bolded? Do they pop out? Am I missing a job title that's bolded? Are all my section headers bolded, or is one not bolded? Or do I have one italicized and one's not italicized? Make sure that everything is consistent in that appearance and as well as aligned. And then most importantly, is my name and contact information clearly listed at the top? Does it pop out? Can I find it easily? If you're saying yes to all those things, awesome, you're in great shape. If not, that's great, you caught it, go back and fix it. And again, if you're unsure, you just want a second set of eyes to look through it, feel free to send in your resume to resumehelp@apus.edu, and we're really happy to help provide you feedback through email or even through a coaching appointment. And if you're feeling confident and ready to apply, go for it and submit that application if you feel that you're ready, and however you want to make sure that that resume is ready to go. But those are the final formatting checklists. Just a quick look over. I wouldn't say quick. Make sure you do look through it thoroughly to make sure everything is there and correct and looks good. But that would be the main checklist, just to double check everything. So let's talk about some key takeaways. As we come to the end of today's presentation, let's do a quick recap of some important takeaways. And again, I know I've mentioned several of these things multiple times throughout today's presentation, but that's only because that's how important it is. First, keep your resume clean, consistent, and professional. Remember, less is more, but content is going to be important to highlight. You can still have less content, but really emphasize and maximize your skills and experiences that employer is looking for by looking through the job announcement. If you're networking or even if you reach out and get in touch with a hiring manager, you know what to really highlight on that resume. For chronological styled resumes, use reverse chronological order. And don't be afraid to tailor the section order to highlight your strengths. Put your best foot forward. So that means if your most current entry doesn't best highlight what the job you're applying for, but the entry before does, it's okay to move some things around. Design with clarity by using bullet points, plenty of white space, but not too much, and standard fonts. It should be really easy to read at a glance. And make sure it's ATS friendly by avoiding those graphics, columns, text boxes, and any non-standard section headers. These can prevent your resume from not making it past the system. So we want to make sure it's going to go through that system and be easily read. And finally, double check that resume. It should be skimmable, typo-free. Everything should be aligned. Polished resume reflects a polished professional. Thanks so much for joining me in today. Don't forget, you can always send your resume in to resumehelp@apus.edu for a review, or you can reach out if you have any questions. We're here to assist you. Good luck with your job search and resume writing. You've got this.